Even though I know what I want to do, for some reason I still do the other. I believe that was written by the Apostle Paul, and it is just a fact of life. We emotionally respond to way too many things. I have all of the intentions in the world of eating broccoli, and that little piece of chocolate cake just kind of calls my name. That's what happens so often to us in the investing world. When markets go up, we tend to see and justify valuations for why they're going to continue to go up. And when they go down, sadly enough, we have valuations for why they're surely going to drop to zero, when we know both are probably misguided. We're going to talk about behavioral finance, mischief, if you will, of investors, as well as good behavior and things that you might want to consider. We're going to discuss it today on Consider This Program. Well, good morning and welcome to Consider This Program. I am your host, Joe Clark.
And I'm Grant Sullivan.
And we are happy to have you. If you're not watching this on video, you've never seen, well, yes, you have probably. Grant's got this pink shirt on, and he is just the manly man looking and sporting his pink. I am just so proud of him. Me, of course, I have my FEG golf shirt on because this is golf season, baby, and we are ready. If you haven't been out and about to see some of the things that are going on. We were in Brownsburg, West Chase Country Clubs. Can't say enough for them. Our director of financial planning lives in Brownsburg. We opened up an office there last year. West Chase did a great job. Really great to see. About 50 golfers that were there that day and people doing arts and crafts. We had 100 that were coming to Anderson this week for golf and about 50 that'll be in for the arts and craft. And then Lafayette is coming very, very quickly. Hopefully next year you will be one of those in attendance as FEG celebrates its 25th anniversary next year. So we're looking forward to that. What we're going to talk about in this theme of this show, the entirety of the show, and remember, if you listen to this on WIBC or a few of the other radio shows, you only get 3 segments. You don't get to hear the whole show. So I would encourage you to go to our podcast, Consider This Program. Wherever you listen to podcasting, you get the whole show. You can always find those individual segments that you missed. But this time, the theme for this show is what keeps you awake at night. We're going to talk about market behavior and investor misbehavior when the two things don't correctly coincide. The academic term back from my Purdue teaching days would be behavioral finance. So let's go ahead and get started here. When we talk about market behavior, Grant, what are you talking about with that?
Well, when we're talking about market behavior, essentially, case in point, Joe, it's the trend or how is the market moving under certain conditions. So right now, when we look at weak seasonality, meaning markets kind of entering weeks seasonality or weakness in this season, does that mean things are going to go chaotic? No. It's just we're looking at the market operates certain ways, just like a human does, and when there's certain seasons, just like there are for the seasons like fall and spring.
Now, before you had me as a professor at Purdue,
yes,
which you did, and before you joined the Financial Enhancement Group, did you think that the markets had seasons?
Not a chance. I thought you put money in and it magically grew. I mean, that's essentially what
we
all think.
That's what people are told. And there is an old expression that says sell in May and go away. And it's because the majority of the growth does tend to occur between the second week of October and about the second or third week in April. It's just the way markets tend to move. It has seasonality. Believe it or not, no different than corn becoming ready to harvest at a different time than beans. Different sectors have different periods of times too. But investors, do they have seasons, Grant?
Well, depends on what the market's doing because, Joe, they can be seasons of panic or seasons of greed is what we've often seen.
But there's also seasons of need.
That's a good one, yes.
So let's not forget about this. You know, somebody asked me this question the other day because I said in every trade, there is an obvious winner and there is a loser because the stock either went up or the stock went down. And though that's true, the point that I tried to make and the point that they said, hey, what do you mean by this, is there are times when people need to sell stock, regardless of whether they believed it was going to go up or down or not, they needed liquidity. Right?
100%.
And so you don't necessarily know the person on the opposite side of the trade is functioning for the same reason that you are, right? The only thing we can control is our behavior, right? Our patterns, our beliefs in terms of what we're doing. We believe that is done with a process. So why don't you talk about what a process is in terms of investing and why that matters?
Absolutely. When you're looking at a process for investing, you want to lay down and essentially go through what is your risk tolerance first and foremost. What's your appetite for digesting risk? If you're like me and you're willing to roll the dice for upside gain, you're willing to take on the downside risk of that bet, fantastic. If you're like my wife and want a whole year's worth of income in cash, probably not taking the same risk or the same bet. So you want to know what your appetite is. And then you want to go through and understand, what are you trying to accomplish with that? Are you playing more of an offensive game? Are you in the accumulation phase of finance? Are you looking for a growth? Are you in preservation where you still need appreciation, but protecting the baby is really the most important piece? Or are you in distribution where really the average point of volatility matters when you're taking dollars out?
So I can get away with doing this because it's, I'm the managing partner. So I will tell you I have a huge problem with the word risk. So where I would go back to you and you say you're willing to roll the dice, where I would change the word, and when what you used, Grant, is exactly what the industry says. They talk about risk. Mm-hmm. I will tell you that you cannot give me an example of using the word risk in an opportunistic fashion. Risk by definition is designed to scare the heebie-jeebies out of you.
Yes.
It is in no way, no shape, no form can it in any way be positive. And we both know the market can go up more than you expected or down more than you expected. FDR placed risk in the vocabulary because it's only negative and he needed money back in the banks. Neither here nor that. Your expectation and an assumption you're willing to accept the ups or the downs is greater than that of Kim's in terms
100%.
of the scenario, right, that you provided.
Yes.
So you need to have different processes, or what we would say at the Financial Enhancement Group, different investment models that function differently, right? They have different jobs to do. I think one of the most confusing things for people when people come in and we have what we call a family update, or we've got a friend who walks in. I think one of the most confusing parts is when I tell them that all dollars are not created equal. All money is not designed to do the same. Neither are your investment accounts. Grant and Kim are different, right? And then Joe and Barb are different. And so one of the preconceived, ill-funded or ill-fashioned ideas that I believe is out there is that investing has a function of age element to it. And I think that's our industry that taught people that. So my youngest daughter is 25. She's in her last year of nursing school. I'm 54. If they ever let me retire, I have no desire to do it, but let's say 15 years from now that's something that's on the table. Who needs their money first, me at 54 or my daughter at 25? Let me remind you again, she's in her last year of nursing school, so there's tuition due, and they'll probably buy a house when she figures out where she's going to work. Her need to have access to capital is much quicker than mine, yet our crazy industry has this ill-conceived notion that I should be less aggressive in my investing than her. And the whole thing with that level of volatility that you were talking about earlier, where you used the word risk, really boils down in terms of liquidity. How sure am I going to get back what I need to get back when I needed to get it back? And that's really where that boils down. So Grant, we have a process to try to keep investor misbehavior to a bare bones minimum. Talk to us about the FEG process. What is that?
Absolutely, Joe. We call it the risk barometer. And just like as you're taking a temperature outside to figure out if it's warm enough to let me out in a Speedo, just kidding, swim shorts, or if I'm going outside in a winter coat, we have the same process for our investing. So we take a look at certain elements like seasonality. It's a small part of the overall process. The deeper, more rooted elements of the risk barometer are the narrative, right? So what you provide the allocation team on essentially what's happening to demographics, the fundamentals. So what stock price actually looked like, where are we at on PE ratios, and then technical analysis. What are we doing and how are we making decisions when breadth is breaking down or price is up and the market momentum are moving in the right directions? Those are, again, in a nutshell, the key elements of the process.
And we bring all of those together, and it's no different than any barometer. We try to tell you if we think the skies are clear, if it's a great day to golf, if it's going to, chance of rain, right? Mm-hmm. Or if, it's just kind of one of those middle of the road days, what we would call neutral. And so your investment model changes based on what that risk barometer says, no different than your attire would change when you go outside. We don't believe anybody should ever be all in stocks or all out of stocks, all in cash or all out of cash. They're all very, very important instruments. The percentage you use depends upon your level of acceptance for that volatility or that variability, your need, the liquidity, That's your planner's job. So when Grant and the planning team sit down with you in your next steps meeting, they will help you ascertain the amount of money that you need to have that is available to you based on where you are in your life as you prepare for your life after work. And he talks to you about retirement budgets and the retirement practice year. That's where all of that really kind of comes into play. And then we're able to take that data and give it to our allocation team, who's really able to coordinate the individual model. So my money in growth is going to be identical to your money in growth, but the percentage of what I have in growth may be different than the percentage that you have in growth. And I hope that makes sense. The model itself doesn't change. The amount of capital or the amount of investment that's allocated to it does. And so here's what you can really expect when you think about this market behavior. What you can think about is coming in, having a next steps meeting. You're going to be told what it is you need to bring in. Somebody in our team is going to spend 90 minutes with you. They're going to give you things that you need to consider today based on your current 401k, the amount of money that you're putting into it or not putting into it. They're going to give you things that you want to consider about your tax planning that could involve around charitable gifting or whether you're itemizing or taking a standard deduction. And we may want to teach you how to double stack or even if not that, bracket bump. And these are all things that the team will work on for you on the tax planning side. And they're ideas that we'll give you that you could take away. The investment playbook is where Grant and the team will help you understand what your investment models need to be based on your specific needs. The Life Happens are checklists that we provide to help with things that we deal with all the time that you may only have to do once, and of course, the legacy plan. That's our job. That's what we do with the Next Steps meeting. Go to yourlifeafterwork.com, 800-928-4001. Get signed up for your Next Steps meeting.